Hello everyone, this is ScabCat242 and here's my review on the Arkham Knight Catwoman figure by DC Collectibles. So this was a figure I have been very anticipating getting because I've been a long time fan of Catwoman and I have pretty much every other Catwoman figure from the Arkham game series. Now, I gotta say this is probably my favorite figure that DC Collectibles has made in the Arkham line, but there are some issues I have with this figure, and one thing I'm going to point out right away was when I opened this figure, I noticed right away she has very loose leg joints, and I was like, really? But it's nothing in the world. I mean, she's still able to stand. I think it's a good sculpt. That was like my only nitpick about that. Nothing broke, which I was glad because like I mentioned before, DC Collectibles has had some very iffy quality control, but like I said, she's pretty good. Really like the face sculpt on her. It's probably my favorite Catwoman figure. I probably already said that already, but the sculpt's really good. I mean, even though she's mostly just a solid black suit, there is a little bit of gray coloring. I don't know if you can see that in her design, but I like it a lot. And actually, she comes with a pretty good amount of accessories. She comes with a whip, and actually it's made out of a very rubbery material, so you can actually get this in bendable positions. Is that even a word? But yeah, it's very flexible. That's what I'm trying to say is. And then she actually has another one, which is caught up on her leg. My only issue with this is I like the fact that you can take this out, and you can have it just resting there, but when you take this out, there's a peg right there, and as you can see here, there's a big gap right on her thigh, and that kind of bothers me a little bit. I wish they would have done this a little bit better, but other than that, if you just keep it there, it's not so much of a problem, but I just wish that could have been done a little bit better. Her other accessories I'll get into. She has different sets of hands. So she has an open hand for holding the whip. She has a couple of fisted hands for punching, and she has a clawed hand for scratching. Now, I wish some of the other figures in this line would have had that, especially the Batman figure. Why Catwoman only had the most accessories and hands, I don't know, but other than that, I think it was a pretty good effort by DC Collectibles point. And then another thing I wish this figure could have done, I wish the goggles could have been removable. That would have been a really, really neat feature, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with this figure. Let's get to articulation. So her articulation is pretty good. So head moves around like that, looks down about that much, up about that much. Ball joints in the shoulders, side to side. Single joints in the arms. Wish that was double, but can't complain. Ball joints in the wrists and hinge. Upper waist articulation, boost that far forward, that far back. Ball joints in the legs. We have a thigh swivel. Double joints in the knees. We have a hinge in the ankle and a really good ankle pivot. So yeah, so it's a pretty good Catwoman figure. Now I wish she could have been a lot more posable because as Catwoman she's a very acrobatic cat burglar, and I was able to get her some pretty good poses, but not as much as I was hoping for. But it's a good effort by DC Collectibles, and actually I'm going to compare her to some other figures that were made by other companies. So let's compare her to the Catwoman from the Arkham City, which was made by Mattel years ago. This is still a favorite figure, but her articulation is very dated now by today's standards. Just her joints are very limited, and I cannot get her in that great of poses. Now let's compare her to the other DC Collectibles Catwoman figure. Now this one's very limited too, but much more. It's more of a statue almost. The face is kind of weird in this figure too, but it was a favorite figure when I picked it up. But I gotta say, this is probably the best Catwoman figure that DC Collectibles has made so far. Now let's compare her to size comparison to Batman. So I think this works pretty good. Batman is pretty tall, and I think the proportions are good. I'm really glad they did this right. So yeah, really like this figure a lot. If you can find her for a good price, or do what I did, went on GameStop's website and try to find her at a good clearance price, she's definitely worth picking up. But be mindful about those loose joints, which sucks, but hey, that's just something you just have to deal with. But overall, if you find her, pick her up. She's a great addition to your Arkham or Batman collection, and that is all I got to say about that.